So let's start at St James's Park, Chris. Arsenal Twitter went wild with this, and I get it, because in real time, with no forensic explanation, this looks like a penalty. And the explanation is that after review, the Newcastle goalkeeper was deemed to play the ball, and therefore it's no foul. For years, we've been told, I got the ball is no longer a defence in law. Why is it here?
Well, I think in the first instance, Sam, I'm with you. I thought when I watched this in real time, it was a penalty, and it was a good on-field decision by Jared Gillett. He took his time, pointed to the spot. And then when you unpick this, you can clearly see there's a slight touch on the ball by Nick Pope, and the VAR, obviously Darren England, has looked at this, and in his opinion, he felt that it was worthy of review. He felt it was a clear error by the referee on field. Now, Jared Gillett has gone to the monitor. He's looked at it again. He feels as though there was enough contact on the ball prior to Gyokeres going to ground, and he's overturned his decision. I mean, my opinion is this. I think that we don't want to be forensically examining these decisions, and there is a slight touch on the ball, but that doesn't negate the fact that Pope has come out a little bit recklessly and collided with Gyokeres. I mean, I think it's a penalty, and I think it should have been check complete, and the decision should have stood. That there was the original decision on field made by the referee.
So there was a fantastic takedown of the decision by Joe Hart, who went through everything step by step on Match of the Day on Sunday night. And one of the key things that he says, the reason why it isn't a foul is because there's no forward motion from Nick Pope after he has contacted the ball. Do you think that is not enough to negate the foul? Yeah. Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I just think that the player, Gyokeres, is going towards the goal line. He's the ball is there for him to get. There's a slight toe on it. As he played it, as he touched it, does it negate it? I think when you break things down forensically, like Joe Hart did last night, you can make a case for that. But I think what you've got to do sometimes is look at it in real time. My initial decision was penalty, and I stand by that thought process.
I was on social media last night, and Arsenal fans were very quick to point out similarities between William Saliba's challenge on João Pedro last year in the Brighton game and Burmo's incident with Robert Sanchez last week. And clips were doing the round with Howard Webb talking about that Saliba-João Pedro incident with the words, that touch on the ball doesn't negate the possibility of a penalty. There's still heavy contact. There's late contact on a player who hasn't played the ball. The ball has touched him. Now, obviously, having seen that, we're expecting that the refereeing fraternity will also have that in the back of their mind when making these decisions. So why is there a lack of consistency between those three incidents, and are they the same?
No incidents are the same on a football field, Sam. Everyone is different, and the referee and the VAR will judge that accordingly on its own merits, that's for sure. I think that the bits that can be confusing sometimes is when you get a touch on the ball. That doesn't negate the fact that there's a foul, but sometimes a player can play the ball and there's a clear playing of the ball. I think with the one at Newcastle yesterday, there was a slight toe on the ball from Nick Pope. I don't think that negates the award of a penalty. But as I said, all three incidents are different. If you just go back a week, you talk about the Sanchez one, he flew out the penalty area. Yeah, there was a slight touch on the ball, but he came out in a reckless fashion. Slightly different. The ball was bouncing and was higher. On this one, it was on the ground.
So he doesn't have any care for the safety of the player as he comes out, Sanchez. So he's being a little bit reckless. So Nick Pope isn't, because he stops what? But at the same time, we're saying it should be a penalty. I don't really understand the sort of the difference between the two. What are you saying?
I think the one at Newcastle yesterday should have stood. I think it should have been check complete, albeit there is a touch on the ball. You know, you look at that from behind the goal, you're re-examining it, you're looking at it again. I don't think it stands out as that clear and obvious error, but the referee, Jared Gillett, has the final decision. You know, he's going over to the monitor, he can look at that, which he did, and he felt there was enough contact on the ball, i.e. Nick Pope has played the ball, and he turned his decision over. I just think in this situation, because there's just that little toe away, is it a clear and obvious error, and does it negate the fact that it should have been a penalty kick? I think the on-field decision at the time was right, and I think he should have stood with that decision.
Okay, obviously there was more dissent from Arteta and Saka post-match. Has the concept of clear and obvious been lost? Is that the right wording?
I think people discuss this a lot now, and what we talk about moreover is ref's call. You know, the referee makes that call, the referee makes that decision. I mean, they've played around with the wording about clear and obvious, and a lot of people don't like it. But I think what we do have to have is we have to make sure that when a decision is overturned, it is clearly and obviously wrong. Wherever it goes, that's wrong. It's not about unpicking decisions. So that's your task this week, Sam. You've got to go away and think of some new words, and let's see how we go with it.
Well, it's interesting because this isn't clearly and obviously wrong, is it? I mean, we're all still debating whether it is or it isn't a penalty. So therefore, it can't be clearly wrong by the referee. So on that case, I suppose the right decision would have been referee's call, which was a penalty to Arsenal. It wasn't, but they still won the game. Also in the match, same end, same game, Newcastle winger Anthony Elanga crossing the ball and hitting Gabriel on the arm as the ball deflected up with the scores level. Referee Jared Gillett did not award a penalty. The VAR agreed. Now, why does the deflection take away the fact that Gabriel's arm is a mile away from his body?
I think it comes in the interpretation of handball, Sam. I think we've seen a real sensible approach to handball in the Premier League, especially last season going into this season, because I've spent probably my post-refereeing career discussing handball and talking about handball, and it's probably the most discussed and argued decision in the game. We've seen law changes every 2 years about handball, you know, when you control the ball before you score a goal, etc., etc. Make yourself unnaturally bigger. Is your arm expected in the expected position for that, you know, any given situation? But what they talk about here is, you know, you get a clear deflection that results in a significant change in trajectory. And what it does, it clearly deflects off the Arsenal player's leg onto his arm. And you could, Sam, listen to me. It carries a real greater weight. If you can cast your mind back, and I'm going to test you now, 2 years ago, Luton were in the Premier League, and it was an early game on a Saturday. You know what I'm going to talk about. And there's a cross came and it deflected off a player's thigh and hit his arm above his head.
Yeah.
And we had a massive debate after that game whether that was the right decision or not. For me, I think there's an acceptance, there's a sensibility about the awarding of handball. I am comfortable with this situation, and especially the interpretation.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. It's a common misconception, actually, that the deflection bit is in law. It isn't. Law 12 doesn't state anything about the deflection. That is guidance that is given by the Premier League to its referees, in which it says, you know, for instance, a deflection alters the trajectory of the ball significantly, and there's no reaction time. In that case, I understand why you give the sort of benefit of the doubt to the defender. But that isn't the case here. That deflection does not significantly alter the trajectory of the ball. And his arm was a mile up anyway. So he was already having his arm in an unnatural position, which made his body significantly bigger.
I'm disagreeing with you. Because it's from close range. It's blasted in. It deflects off his foot. If it doesn't touch him, I get it. Sam, if I put my arms behind my back, is that a natural position?
No, but if you slide in with your arm above your head in anywhere else in Europe, that's going to be a penalty. There's no way in the Champions League that is not given.
You'll always see a different interpretation with handball around the world. It's nothing new.
Is that right?
I think we've got it. I think we are in a really good position with handball. I think last season there may have been a handful of penalties given for handball. I think there's more of an acceptance. It's a really, really difficult decision to make. It's one that causes more controversy than ever. We actually saw an incident last year in a game at Fulham where the VAR recommended a review for a handball penalty, and the referee went to the monitor and said, no, I'm sticking with my original decision. So I think we should leave it where it is. I think, as I said, it's blasted in. It's low, it hits his foot, jumps up, hits him on the arm. Sam, you're looking for trouble. Don't look for trouble. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Let's just stay with the on-field decision checked. And there wasn't too many dissenting voices following that one. So let's just keep the consistency with handball in the Premier League.
Hold on, if your lot hadn't been looking for trouble over the course of the week, we wouldn't have had forensic analysis of the first incident we've done.
15 all.
By the way, a phrase I never thought we'd hear. I think we're in a really good position with handball. Okay, let's move on to the Voltemada Gabriel love affair, which developed during the game. The push in the back from Voltemada on Gabriel, I'm not going to spend too much time on because it was so minute. I don't think that there's any sort of discussion that needs to be had on that. It was very soft, and VAR didn't even check it for too long. But let's talk about what happened afterwards when Gabriel ran into him. Obviously, Gabriel goes on to score the winner in this game. Should he have been sent off?
No, he shouldn't have been sent off, but it wasn't. I don't think it was seen on field by the match officials. In fact, I'm pretty confident it wasn't. But it would have been checked by the VAR for an act of violent conduct, obviously a red card offence. They've cleared it. I think, yeah, there's contact. Is it negligible? Yeah, it is. If it's seen on field, what's the outcome there for me? Sam, I think that's a yellow card for unsporting behaviour. I don't think it meets the threshold for a red for violent conduct.
Okay, all right, we'll move on. Mark Clattenburg refereed a Champions League final, a European Championship final, an Olympic final, and he's got the tattoos to prove it. Yesterday, he took to social media to have a go at Howard Webb. Not happy at all with Howard's running of the PGMOL. He said, another match where we're discussing the standards of refereeing in the Premier League. Hashtagged it Newcastle Arsenal. And then the key phrase, time for Webb to accept he has failed. Have these two got previous? Were they big refereeing rivals back in the day, Chris?
I don't remember that, but what I do remember is that, Howard Webb and Mark Clattenburg were both outstanding referees at their time. Mark's track record there with what you've just mentioned, the game he's refereed. He was an exceptionally good referee and respected by the players. Obviously, social media, we talk about it every week, don't we? There's obviously some frustration there, and social media gives you the opportunity to air your views. That's his prerogative. He can do that. He's made an observation. That's the way he feels.
Obviously, we had the incident where he went to Nottingham Forest and acted as a refereeing consultant to Evangelos Marinakis and his group. He went off to referee in the Middle East, which denied the FA and the PGMOL and the Premier League a place at a World Cup, a refereeing place at a World Cup. He is quite an outspoken character. Is it helpful that he's pointing these things out, or is he just being honest? Does he want Howard's job?
I don't know about whether he wants Howard's job or not. You'd have to ask him that question, but he's got an opinion. He's a referee with a superb track record, on field, and he's got an opinion like many other match officials do.
So does that worry you about the stage of the game? If a referee of that standing is criticising to this level, does it worry you about the standard of refereeing in the Premier League?
No, it doesn't, because what we've got now is with social media is everybody's got an opinion. Everybody can take a photograph. Anybody can pick up on a trend and theme and have a go at a referee. You talk, Premier League games are really in the goldfish bowl now. Everything is analysed from the nth degree, and somebody's got an opinion on every decision, every foul, every throw in, every goal kick corner situation. It's the way it is. Mark has he's heard his views on social media. That's his opinion. Look, we're talking about some decisions at the weekend where referees and VARs have probably got a decision wrong, where they'll learn from it. But you're in the goldfish bowl. It's the way society is now, Sam. It's not just football.
Do you think Howard is doing a good job?
Howard is working really, really hard. I think he's got a good bunch of officials. He's brought in more training, more education, more development. I think one of the things he has done as well is given more referees opportunities to step up a level, to referee at another level. We talk about mid-season promotions now. The opportunities for refereeing have never been as good. And I have to tell you, Sam, when I finished refereeing, I decided that I would never do it again. If I could go back under the present regime and the way refereeing is now, I would start again, because there's never been a better time to be a referee.
I think one of the things that they do really well now is that they communicate much better and explain these decisions. And look, I think they accept that they don't get everything right. I think this start of the season has been more difficult than they anticipated, bearing in mind that they've done a lot on trying to improve the consistency. But I also think that us understanding, and one of the reasons we're doing this show is because we want to understand the intricacies of the law. We want to understand how the decision process is made, is helpful. because we get a better understanding of what the referees are going through. That also is a better thing. But at the same time, you can understand why people have frustrations when decisions are making match-changing impacts on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think if you go back 3 years, with the PGMOL, as it was called then, now it's the PGMO, there was no real media. And now you've got situations where you've got the mic'd up refs. Howard Webb does his media briefings that we were on one last week, weren't we? We attended, where we get an explanation to decisions and an understanding, and people get an opportunity to ask questions. I think he's been really open in that respect, and I think that's important. But even so, you can go out and you can explain a decision and people still won't agree with you, because football, is black and white, but in the middle there's that grey area. And it always gives us debate, it always gives us discussion, and sometimes it gives us an argument or two.